Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOTHSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Trump, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
And welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Trump. We have Ed Dick, Sean Duffy, Josh Jeffy from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. It's our Week 7 recaps for our high school football sports coverage. Want to welcome everyone and thanks for listening. Guys, Week 7 in the books, and I can tell you Sports on Tap had a great game of the week this week at Highland that we'll cover later on in the show.
Josh almost lost battery on his phone.
That's social media updates and pictures and all kinds of good stuff.
Maybe refreshing and checking the Indian score. I don't want to say anything, but at one point he comes to me and goes, I may need your phone to finish the second half of this game. I had never heard that uttered in my life, but when it came to Josh, but it was an interesting game.
Yeah, a lot going on, as is tonight with the Indians and the Yankees. Game 4 of the ALDS. We're in the top of the second. No score, and the Indians have, I believe, one out.
Yeah, it looks like it's raining pretty good there, too, where it's nice and sunny right here in Studio J. It always is.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of great high school football action this last Friday. We're starting to really see some teams, I think, distance themselves, and some teams make it more interesting by getting some big wins and maybe getting some more points and trying to get in that top 8 or 10, whatever region and division it is. But, Josh, let's start with you in the Greater Cleveland Conference. What do you have for us in Week 7?
Well, things got a little chippy as Strongsville went on to a 21-7 victory over Medina. Medina's head coach, Larry Laird, did coach at Strongsville for the past 3 seasons, but it was not enough as Strongsville, again, goes on to a 21-7 victory. Strongsville improves to 3-4 on the season, 1-3 in the GCC, and then Medina drops to 2-5. They are also 1-3 in the GCC. Like I mentioned, things got a little chippy towards the end of the game. Some trash talking to the point where police officers were actually on the field during handshakes of this game. But this game started off real good. It was 7-7 at the half, and this was somewhat of the turning point of the game for both teams. There was a 94-yard touchdown run by Medina quarterback Levi Pokersnick, but that was actually called back. The last block that he had on the touchdown drive actually was called back on holding. To add insult to injury for Medina, Pokersnick was injured. He hurt a tendon in his calf muscle, and he did not return. So Medina actually had to go back or go down to their third starting quarterback on the season. In this one, after that, though, it was pretty much all Strongsville, as it was offensively most of the game. In total, Strongsville had 67 plays, 333 yards of offense, and that is to Medina's 46 plays, 153 yards. And Strongsville was led by Johnny Major, who had a hand in all 3 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdown passes and 1 touchdown run. Dylan Foltz was the lone B who scored a touchdown in this game. So Medina, again, drops to 2-5. After the game, Larry Laird, when talking to the Gazette, was sort of blaming the referees for letting it get out of hand and kind of how they were inconsistent with their penalty calls. So you don't ever like to hear that in any aspect, but in some cases it does need to be said. There were some inconsistencies in this game, but you do have to play through that kind of stuff. But unfortunately for Medina, it just did not work out for them.
Well, I mean, referees are inconsistent in pretty much every game.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest job in the world to do. I mean, I was talking about one of the other coaches on the sidelines at our game, and, it's – yeah, I mean, they miss calls. They're going to miss a call here and there. And, yes, it certainly seems like, especially when you're the team who's seemingly getting every call against them, that there's some sort of inconsistency there. I think we all know the referees aren't out to get one certain team or the other. I mean, but like you said, you have to play through that. I mean, some things you have to if you perceive it to be an 11 against 12, then you have to battle through that. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it seems like the referees and their penalty calls played a big part in some of these games, and it played actually a real big part in our game of the week. We'll talk about here a little bit later. So next for these teams, Strongsville will travel to Shaker, and Medina will Strongsville will host Shaker while Medina travels to Elyria. Speaking of Elyria, they rolled in against Brunswick, and they ended up coming up short as Brunswick gets their fourth victory on the year, 38-23 over the Pioneers. Brunswick improves to 4-3, 2-2 in the conference. Elyria drops to 1-6. They are 1-3 in the conference. This game for Brunswick was led by offensive players Cole Samiska and Ethan Flanagan. The opening scoring drive for the Blue Devils was a Cole Samiska 83-yard TD run in this game at quarterback. He had 189 yards of total offense with one passing touchdown and a running touchdown. Ethan Flanagan carried the ball and basically carried the Blue Devils on the offensive side to a victory. 20 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the defense did a really good job of keeping quarterback Dante Beckett in check. He still had a pretty decent game on the passing side, 15-32 for 175 yards, and then running 24 carries, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And this was a pretty back-and-forth matchup. Both kickers got a field goal in this game. I think Elyria had 2 field goals, actually, in this game, just one. Thanks, Ed, for
they missed an extra point.
That's what it was. But this one, Brunswick was able to compete, play really well, and notch a victory. And in the Gazette, Coach Pinzoni, after the game, he was really proud of his team. Just 2 weeks ago we were talking about them losing 62-0, and then coming back last week and playing pretty tough against a very good Solon team. And then they came back. This was a winnable game for them, and they went out and they took care of business, and they improved to 4-3 on the year.
Yeah, it's always good to win at home, and luckily, right now we're 4-0 at home, so that's always good when you're able to defend your home turf. This was while we did consider this a winnable game, don't take anything away from Elyria. I mean, Elyria has lost to some very, very good teams. Their non-conference schedule, I think, has teams that have either 5 or 6 wins, and then they've played Solon and Euclid already. In conference, I mean they've gone up in quite the meat grinder already, the meat grinder part of their schedule, and I'm sure they looked at our game and said, you know what, we could probably get Brunswick. I think we had 2 very similarly matched teams, and it showed in the contest, and we played pretty well. Coach Pinzoni, and the rest of our coaching staff put together a good game plan, and we executed. So it's always good to win at home. Now we have to hopefully maintain that momentum going into the game against Euclid.
And thanks for mentioning. Nice segue there, Ed. Euclid played Solon this past weekend in the game of the week in the GCC. Euclid with the edges out of victory, 33-28 over Solon. Euclid remains on top of the GCC, 6-1 overall, 4-0 in the conference. Solon drops to 5-2. They are 3-1 in the conference. Now, Euclid was actually up 27-0 as late as into the third quarter. Then Solon went on a run, scoring 28 unanswered points to go up 28-27 with 6 minutes left in this game. Euclid's starting quarterback, C.J. Hale, did leave the game due to an injury, so Aubrey Shabazz came in, and he actually, on a 5-yard TD run, scored late in the fourth quarter, ended up being the game-winning score. The game did end on the defensive end for Euclid. Solon was driving. The ball was down to the Euclid 25. It was 4th down, and Euclid did intercept the ball, sealing the victory for them. A lot of offensive. It seemed like everyone on both teams got into the game offensively, but the defense showed up in the end for Euclid as they go on to the 33-28 victory over Solon. The final game of the GCC, pitted, and this was last Saturday, pitted the Mentor Cardinals against the Shaker Heights Red Raiders. Now, Shaker Heights usually gives Mentor a hard time, and this game was no different. Shaker got out to an early 14-3 lead behind Jameer Demukes, who in this game total had 440 total yards, 4 touchdowns. Then Mentor, as they always do with that high potent offense, just kind of took over the game and outscored Shaker the rest of the game. Tadas Tanarunas had 280 total yards and 4 touchdowns in this one, as Mentor was just too much for the Red Raiders as they went on to the 45-27 victory. Mentor improves to 6-1, 4-0 in the conference. Shaker drops to 3-4. They are 0-4 in the conference. They're looking to get their first victory. They will try to do that at Strongsville, while Mentor will play at Solon. If we go playoff rankings, according to Joe Itel, Division I, Region 1, Mentor is number 4, Euclid number 5, so they would be in the playoffs if they started today.
They would play each other, actually.
Yep, that would be an awesome first-round matchup. Solon is number 9, Strongsville number 10, and Shaker rounds out Division I, Region 1 at number 14 for the GCC. Division I, Region 2, Brunswick is 10, Medina 17, Elyria 18.
Yeah, it's entirely contested, Matt. It's especially Division I, Region 1. You have a lot of those tough teams up there. Solon right now is on the outside looking in. They've had a great season up to this point. They're 5-2, and they're number 9, and they're in real danger here if they can't string together some wins of missing the playoffs. With a very good record. I mean, it's just a very competitive Division I, Region 1 with Ignatius, Eds, and McKinley leading the way at 7-0 if you're first top 3 spots, and then obviously Brunswick's two spots away from a playoff berth in Division I, Region 2 as well. So a lot of big games coming up here soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the playoff picture is starting to kind of take shape a little bit, and you're kind of seeing which teams need to control their own destiny and rely on a little bit of help from other teams in other leagues.
And right now, we're going to go to the Sports on Tap hotline, where we have head coach of the Brunswick Blue Devils, Mark Pinzoni, joining us. And, Coach, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate you having me on here. Let me go through the phone here and run around like crazy, boy. I wish I could have came in, but I'm just running around and kind of burning the candle at both ends.
No, well, we appreciate you taking time. We know you're really busy. And so far, you guys are 4-3 on the season. And talk a little bit about head coach at Brunswick in your first season so far.
It's been fantastic. When you come into any program, there's always the struggles and the challenges, and I've really enjoyed it. Again, the story's kind of old now, Rob. I mean, coming back to Brunswick, myself and the staff, and we feel at home, and just blessed to be back. We've gone through a few rough patches. Obviously, the couple of weeks where we had trouble with Mentor and Solon, but our kids have really, really responded well to not only me as the head coach, but our coaching staff, and what we're trying to put forth, both specifically day to day and week to week, but also overall as a program.
Hey, Coach, this is Josh Jeffy. Thanks for joining us. Hey, just wanted to get your thoughts. I know after this game, this victory over Elyria, you said there was a really big victory for your team as you were talking to the Gazette. Coming off a couple weeks ago, a pretty bad loss against Mentor, and then playing real tough against Solon last week. Just talk about how your team has really answered the call and not quitting and really playing tough for you.
Well, one of the things that I do, and I don't know what other coaches do, that your guess is as good as mine, but I try to be very transparent with our kids. I don't hold a lot of secrets. I try to be very frank with them and treat them as much like men and adults as I possibly can, while not forgetting that they're also still kids. And I told them, I said, I've been doing this a long time. Our staff's been doing this a long time. And when any team gets to a third week where 21 days has gone by with losses, you know what I mean? And you get that third loss, that's a very, very difficult psychological thing, you know what I mean? And to be able to come back after 3 losses in a row and really, have not only a successful week and a game after that, but it really breaks people down a little bit. So I told the guys that, this game is a crucial game to our season, to our team, to our program, and really to the psychological well-being of what we've been spending so many days and months on. They did. I told them they need to answer the call. I'm putting pressure on you. This is going to happen, and we need to go make it happen, and they did. So I'm very proud of them.
Coach, this is Sean Duffy talking to you here. And one question that I have is, looking forward, you got a pretty good test this week against a really good Euclid team, very athletic, and able to kind of really stretch the field. What's one of the things you guys are going to try and focus on as far as an overall game plan to try and slow down the Euclid team?
Yeah, well, you kind of answered it. We're gonna, we got to catch them first. I mean, they're really fast. They're not just fast; they're really fast. And so now they are dinged up a little bit. And like any team, you're getting into the week 6, 7, 8, in that range. You're going to probably see that. So they've got a couple of bumps and bruises, and we're coming off a couple of bumps and bruises. I feel like, compared to last week going into Elyria, we're actually slightly healthier. We should get, one of our linemen back. Tommy Call should be available. One of our other linemen that played kind of gimpy is feeling better. One of our skilled guys who played sick with the flu, who actually, got sick on the sideline slightly and still played through it and got hydrated and fluids, and he's now, better and at the tail end of his sickness. So we should be slightly healthier this week. And we've got some speed too. We're just going to have to play smart. We feel like we have a chance, and I've talked to the kids and said, okay, great. They're a great team. They're a fast team. They're a well-coached team. They're a 6-1 team. You know what I mean? So they're good. And so what we're going to have to do is do things right and be in the game, be competitive in the fourth quarter, and have a chance to win the game. And I've talked to them about that. Now, we did that, in Solon. We started to become more competitive in the second half, and obviously Menor, there's no surprise there. We were not competitive. That was disappointing to me, disappointing to our staff, and equally as disappointing to our kids. And they know that we have to be competitive in order to have that opportunity to win. So if that happens, if we play right and we're competitive in that second half, in that fourth quarter, then we're in a position to have an opportunity to win against a very, very quick, very good, well-coached team like Euclid.
I couldn't agree more, Coach. And, looking at the Greater Cleveland Conference, how tough has it been in your first season to really go through the grind so far? I mean, the season's not over, but your first full season here as head coach, and, talk about the difference, in some of these teams. Menor's obviously a really good team. Solon, every week it seems like you're going through the grind. You talked a little bit about how talented Euclid is, but every week you're going through the grind, and it seems like your players are up for the challenge, and your players so far this year have done pretty well. Talk a little bit about your players and also the schedule this season.
Well, the schedule part, you use that magic. That is the word, boy. I've heard that word 1,000 times. It's a grind. The grind is the magic. That's the magic buzzword. It's a grind. At Buckeye, when we were at Buckeye the past 4 years, the schedule had a little bit different feel and look to it, we'll say. Here these teams, they're great teams. They're big schools. They're great teams. They're well-coached teams with athletes and bodies in their school buildings like us. And so we expect to be that way too. What we've done is we've said, listen, we're a big school. We've got a lot of bodies in our hallway. We've got a big roster. We've got some big guys, some strong guys, and some fast guys, and some talented guys. And so we want to be in that position where people are looking at us saying, hey, we got to figure out how to beat Brunswick because they're good. They're getting better. They're getting good. And that's just, goes back to trying to earn respect. And so to answer the second part of your question about talking about our players, that's what I'm probably most proud of is, these kids, and I'm not just talking about our senior class, these kids have unfortunately, not experienced a whole lot of winning in the recent past, and for a variety of reasons. But the idea is to learn how to win and to learn how to close games out and to learn to expect to win. And those are hard things to measure. And the way to do that is to keep doing what you said, which is to go and grind it out, to keep working and keep sticking together and keep grinding through day to day, week to week. And that's a difficult thing for kids to do. It's a difficult thing for coaches to get players to do. And I've really been fascinated and shocked and impressed by how committed our players are, how committed our coaching staff is, and how supportive the people in the community and in our school building are. And that's one of the main reasons why we're experiencing what I'll call some mild success. We've had some setbacks. It's not like it's been all bed of roses, but we absolutely have experienced some improvement, some success, and I think the kids are seeing that and learning to close out games, to win games.
Talk a little bit about the leaders on your team. Whether it's offense or defense, it seems like every team needs some good leaders, whether, with the ups and downs. It seems like if you have those certain leaders, they really take a team and say, it's okay, we're going to get through this. Who are some of the leaders on this team that you've been impressed with so far this year?
Well, it always starts with your seniors and your captains. I firmly believe that. I think any coach will tell you the same. Our senior class is 33 guys, 32 guys, and they're working hard. So as a class, they're a good group of leaders. Our captains, we have 5 captains. One of them, Tommy Carr, was down this week, and he's there every day pushing and working and trying to get better and helping our kids. And Steve Spickler is one of our toughest, strongest, linemen. He's been fantastic, and I have him in class every day, and he's been a great leader. And Caden Harder and Jake Vadini, who are fullback linebackers, they're at the heart and soul of what we do on our offense and defense because they play just about every snap. And then, of course, Cole Zamiska, who has been outstanding in terms of leadership. He's really – we've made it tough on him. He started out being our wide receiver and a backup quarterback and a punter. And unfortunately, Josh Stockwell, who was really, kind of coming into his own at the end of the summer and the beginning of the year, snapped his collarbone. And we had to make Cole come right over to quarterback again and really take on the brunt of everything. And he's done a great job, and he's gotten better every week. So he has been a great leader, not only verbally as a senior, but through his work on the field. And then, a couple of other guys that they may not be captains, but they certainly are showing their will to win. And one that obviously stands out for us is Ethan Flanagan, who, obviously touches the ball a lot. He's the name you see in the paper a lot. And I've really been, impressed with not only his good play, but his willingness to move around, because it's no secret. I mean, we've asked him to play receiver, running back, quarterback, defensive back, kick returner, even punt returner sometimes. He is really doing a lot for us. And we're hanging our hat on him. He's not a captain, but he sure acts like one. He carries himself like one. And I have him in class too. And, I look forward to seeing him and those guys every day in school and on the field because they're just quality young men.
Coach, real quick, following you on Twitter, kind of getting a feel of how the future is for the Brunswick program. Your JV and your freshman teams seem to be doing well. You're passing out a lot of congratulations to them on Twitter. So just talk about, the youngsters in the program and the future as you can see it, getting into your first year back at Brunswick.
Well, it's no secret, I'm a pretty positive person. My mantra for coaching any kids has always been to find ways to stay positive, to find creative, positive ways there's no sense in being, yelling and screaming and being negative and derogatory or sarcastic or any of those things. So no matter what's happening, pushing the kids, certainly telling them like it is. And, I'm not trying to feed them cups of sunshine because they, a couple of weeks were, like I said, pretty rough back during that Menor-Solon time. But, when we're accomplishing good things, you want to be positive, and I believe in that. And so you'll see some of those, I call them kumbaya tweets, and I tell the kids that. But it's also a good reminder that, I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to be positive as their leader, as a coach, and I expect them to stay positive. And, anybody can be positive in the good times. It's when you're getting your butt kicked and, you got some dinks and danks and you're injured. Can you keep your head up and, like you said, keep grinding And so we look to do that. And yeah, our younger groups have been doing better. Our JV group admittedly has struggled a little bit. They've lost some games. They had a nice win against Elyria. But we put our JV kids in a tough spot because we except for the summer where they get to run Brunswick's offense and defense, when you think about it, and a lot of schools do this, with JV, we ask them during the week to run that scout team for us. So essentially they're running the other team's offensive and defensive plays for our varsity. So they really don't get a lot of practice during the week running Brunswick's offense and defense. And then we tell them to run out there on Saturday morning and run Brunswick's offense and defense. I mean, so really the idiot's me. You know what I mean? So I'm not putting our JVs in the greatest of positions week to week. So, we want to make sure that, that they're getting better. Our freshman team, I have to say, they've been fantastic. They're 6-1. They're a great group of kids. We're looking forward to having them next year. And with our improving JV, our returning juniors, and our freshmen, we feel good about next year. But I got to tell you, fellas, we're worried about these 3 weeks, specifically Euclid. We're worried about that in the off season.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking time tonight to come on our show. We wish you nothing but the best of luck the rest of the season. And like I said, we know you're busy, so anytime you have, we appreciate when you come on.
Well, thanks for having us, appreciate everything you do for the high school football, for Brunswick football, and for us. And don't eat too much ice cream over there, okay?
Hey, Coach, I'll see you on Thursday. We really appreciate you coming on. This is Ed.
Okay, Ed. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
No problem. Thanks, Coach.
Bye-bye.
That's head coach of the Brunswick Blue Devils, Mark Pinzoni, joining us. They're 4-3 this year. And a lot of great stuff from Coach Pinzoni. You always love talking to him. He breaks it down, tells you how it is, and has some fun with it. But he just loves high school football. He's been around it a long time. And coming over from Buckeye, I think it was a great thing for Brunswick football. And, 4 wins this year is pretty impressive, and they hope to keep winning as the season goes along.
And they're in the conversation for playoffs.
That's right.
I mean,
they're still
a lot of teams are
they're
right
number
now.
10 right now.
A lot of teams are, but you know what I mean? That's where you want to be at this time of the year for any coach, especially, a coach with a young team like Brunswick. You want to be in the conversation. It may not lead to anything now, but it tends to plant those seeds going forward.
Yeah, we'll wait and see how the Brunswick Blue Devils do against the Euclid Panthers coming up. But right now we'll step away. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll give the recap for the Southwestern Conference. We also have the Suburban League, our game of the week, and we might have one more guest tonight. We will have a guest tonight on our show. All coming up. You'll have to wait to find out who it is. Coming up, we're Sports on Tap.